I'm Grandma. I'm here in sunny Houston with 2 pugs, uncountable computers, and a neighbor who is mowing his lawn with a power mower. So let's just hope this show comes off as I plan. Okay, today we're going to build Hungry Snake in MakeCode Arcade. So the first thing I want to do is to just demo the game. So this is the game that I had started playing some time ago, and the state of the game, there's the snake. That orange is the snake head. The score is 16, which means this snake has eaten 16 apples. And each time the snake eats an apple, it grows longer. And eventually it can get very long. This button will start and pause the game. These turn the snake. Now I have the snake set at a grandma speed. You can change the speed of the snake so that if it runs into itself, the game will be over. Look at that, we made it. That's the problem when the snake gets really long, is it might run into itself. Or if the snake hits the wall, it will go. And so now I've pasted the URL for the game into here, into the chat window. Now, one of the fun things about this game is it plays really well on a phone. So all you have to do is text or email this link to your phone and then just click it and it will open in the game, which is like way cool. So it's almost like a real game. And of course it runs on all the MakeCode Arcade devices. So now let's take a look, quick overview of the code. This is the code that we are going to be building. And although I am going to try not to rush through it, I believe we can build this whole game today. Now, this is the code. It's organized as follows. Over here on the left is the code that just builds the snake. The snake just sits there on the field and it builds the snake. This code is what causes the snake to move and to do all the things that makes it move. This code here over on this side is the code that makes the snake change directions, and this is the code that makes the snake pause or go. And then this code, which is incredibly important, this code is the one that makes the snake score when it eats an apple, and this code makes the snake grow longer as it eats. And then this last code is if the snake hits a wall, the game is over. The other code that makes the game be over is this one. When the snake head, this code is when the snake hits itself, the game is over. And this statement right here is when the snake hits a wall, the game is over. Okay. Let's just build the game. So we will go to home. We will get a new project. And we're going to call this New Snake. By the way, I've been building snakes for so many years I can hardly remember. Probably more years than you've been alive. Because Snake is a classic computer game. There's lots of different variants. In fact, if you look on my blog, MakeCode.com, you will see I've built at least 3 snakes, 1 in Minecraft and 2 in arcade. And this one makes 4 because it's a brand new snake. On this one, I worked to make the code a little less obtuse. So we're going to create a new code let's review here just a minute about what this snake does. It's good to know what the game does before you start coding it. First, the snake moves automatically. Some versions of Snake require you to hit the arrow buttons in order to move the snake. But this one just moves all by itself. It can be made to move very fast or very slow. The snake can be paused. Buttons change the snake direction. The score increases as the snake eats apples. The snake grows longer as apples are eaten. The game is over if the snake hits the wall, and the game is over if the snake head hits its body. Okay, so now when I start to program, I like to build just an overview of what I'm doing so that I have the whole strategy in mind before I start writing detailed code. So usually I use onStart, and so what is the main thing we're going to do in onStart? We're going to make a snake. We'll do a few other things too, but mostly we're going to make a snake. But if we just made the snake, it would just lay there. So we need to do something to make the snake move. And the best way to do that is on the game update. And this code, I'm going to add a comment, moves the snake. Okay, then next we want to use the buttons to cause the snake to change directions and to start and stop the snake. So let's use button B because it's closer, and we're going to cause it to start and stop the snake. And then we're going to use controller buttons. I bet you can guess this. We're going to use up to cause the snake to turn up. So we change the snake direction as it moves. So now we'll just copy these, and I'm going to say to the right. What makes it move to the right? Then we will make it move to the down. Then we will make it move to the left. Okay, so that's all the controls. That's what the player has to do in order to operate the game. Now we have these really fun things, which is to make the game end and also to score. And for that we use sprite events. So this one, which is enormously useful, and we want this one to increase the score. Whoops, increase the score. Have it lengthen the snake and make more apples, because the snake ate one. Now, something about this isn't quite the way we want it, is it? So what two things have to intersect when in order to trigger this event? Well, this one, we're going to call that food. And this one, it's the snake head. So we're going to create a special kind called snake head sprite. If you hear a little snoring in the background, that's my pug, who's one of my pugs who's here at my feet. Then we're going to need another one of these gadgets. And this is going to be the one that makes the game, one of the ways in which the game can be over. And this time, Now, the game is over when the snake hits itself or when it hits the wall. And we'll do the wall one later when we create the sprite. So this will be over when the snake head sprite hits what? A snake body sprite. Isn't that cool? I love these kinds. They really are a powerful gadget. Now, so now we have our overall plan. And I like to organize my code in such a way that I know where to look for certain things. So generally the startup stuff is here, the action stuff is here, user controls are here, and over here are the events to make things happen. So all we have to do now is just fill in the details. Okay, fill in the details. Now, I like, just as an aside, I like my code to be laid out in a certain way so that I can find things. Now, what I hate is that if I go to JavaScript to look at something, which sometimes I need to do that, then when I go back to blocks, even if I make a trivial change in JavaScript, when I go back to blocks, my code is all scattered in some different way that I never would have put it. I don't know why it can't do its best effort to put it back where it was. Okay, I'm complaining. So now let's fill in, let's start coding. So let's start by making a snake. So let's do some other general startup things. Let's set the background color, not the image. Ground color. And let's set the score to 0. And then let's make a function that makes the snake. So I go down here to advance and I go to functions, make a function that's called MakeSnake. Well, sort of. By the way, this week I've had so much fun playing with the new MakeCode microbit beta and using all those function returns. And I'm thinking next week I'm going to show you some of that cool code. Okay, so we've got the snake made. So then we're going to keep track of the number of apples that are on the screen. So we need a variable. It's in apples. So we're going to set in apples to right after, whoops. I need to call MakeSnake from the onStart. Then I'll set the apples. Not that it would have made any difference in the order. And then set the number of apples to 0, and then I need to scatter some apples around on the field. So I'm going to make another function, and I'm just going to call it do apples. See, I have to drag, it always goes to the top. Why can't it just go right to where I'm looking on the screen? Okay. I'm going to stop complaining now. I love MakeCode. Okay, so I'm going to do some apples. And then I'm going to create a variable called move rate. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. So let's go ahead and fill some of, I'll make the snake code in so that we kind of get it in our mind. I'm going to first of all make a function called make the snake head. And guess what? There will be another one called Make Snake Body. That's nice and symmetric. So up here in Make Snake, okay, in Make Snake, we need to call Make the Snake Head, and then call Make the Snake Body. Now there's one other little thing I want to do here. In the beginning of making the snake, I had to decide how many pixels would a given sort of cell on the snake be. So I have a variable which I call cell size. And it's really what is the side of a square that's on a cell of the snake. And we're going to set cell size to 8. I thought when after I got this code built that I would experiment with different cell sizes, but I think that probably it doesn't work because in some parts of the code, I think I made some assumptions about what the cell size was. So, although it's there and that's nice, but I don't think that changing it will be what you want. Okay. So now we're going to do the detail of Make the Snake Head. So the snake head is just going to be a sprite. So we're going to have a variable called, first of all, make the snake head image. And it's going to be, oh, that didn't work the way I wanted it, did it? So I'm going to go up to sprites. I'm going to make the snake head image a variable, which is under, not here, it's going to be, where is that? Is it there? I want an image. I want an image of a certain size. Okay, there's images. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm going to create an image, and it's going to be cell size by cell size. Then I'm going to fill it. Fill snakehead image with orange. Then I want to, now I'm ready to create the sprite. So we're going to have a variable called snakehead. And it's going to be a sprite of kind. So we're going to borrow this guy and just pull that out of there since I already did the other. And it's going to be a sprite of kind, guess what? Snakehead. Snakehead sprite. and it's going to be, so and it's going to be with snake head image. So there. Now here's a very, very, very important thing. This sprite, we're going to set it, one of its features, to stay on the screen. Snake head has to stay on the screen. And what that does is it causes an event with, it ends the game. It doesn't cause an event. It just simply ends the game if the snake goes off the screen. Cool. And then we're going to set the snake head in a specific location. So we're going to set its X and Y positions. And I am going to just, whoops, not that one. Set. I'm going to set snake head, sprite, snake head. Now, I'm just going to let the X, I'm not going to set X and you know what that means? X is going to be the center. It's going to be the middle of the horizontal. It will be at the middle. I'm going to only set Y, which gives its up-down positions, and I'm going to set it to the screen height divided by 2 plus 10. So we need to do a little math here, and we're going to need a division. Well, that's a plus. I'm going to need a division first. Okay, so now we have screen height. It's a very handy thing to know. Screen height. Oh, the new Microbit beta really helps you get these things in those slots, and I love it. So I'm having a little trouble doing it here. So it's going to be in the middle, but I'm going to move it down by 10 pixels. Why? How did I come up with all that? Oh, I just futzed around with it. I didn't want it to be right in the middle. So that's what I came up with. Okay, we made a snake head. Do you think that that will actually put a snake head on the screen? Well, why don't we see? So would the program run? That's a good question. So we can kind of glance up here. It's going to go to enter. It has everything there. And these functions that aren't built yet, they just do nothing. So they return. So it looks like to me this would probably run. So we will start it. There, yay! There's the snake head. I love it when things work. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the snake body. Now it's a little more complicated. But if you just do it one step at a time, it works. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to make an image just like we did before. So we're going to have a snake body image. And we're going to set the snake body image to, we're going to create image of a certain size. And that size is going to be same as the head. So it will be cell size by cell size. Then we're going to fill snake head image, a snake body image, sorry, and we're going to pick, it's going to be black. And then we're going to set the X and Y positions And I'm sorry. Oh, there's a really important thing. Oh, we're going to need a list of the cells in the snake body. So there's this wonderful thing called creating an array of sprites. And I sometimes forget where this is. It's in here somewhere. Okay, maybe it's over in arrays. There it is. Kind of confusing because the blue makes you think it would be. So we're going to have a sprite list, but we're going to rename this to snake list. But it is the sprite list. And it will only ever contain sprites of kind snake body sprites. The head doesn't need to go in the list. And then we're going to calculate. We haven't made a sprite yet, but we need to do some things before we actually go make the sprite. So we're going to need to, where do we want the sprite to be? So we're going to have variables called X and Y. Isn't that clever? I don't have any trouble remembering what they are. And we're going to set X to and we're going to set Y. If you think about it, let's see, I'm going to do these in the other order for some reason. Y is the up-down direction. And we're going to set Y to the snake head body Y. We're going to set Y to be the snake head Y. And then we'll set X to the snake head X. Okay, now we're going to make a loop. I know you don't quite see where I'm going with this, but just be patient a little bit longer. We're going to loop through here 4 times. And each time we go through, we're going to go put the snake body pixels below the head, then below the one before, and below the one before. So we're going to set Y here to Y plus cell size. So this will be Y see, that's making me crazy. Sometimes I've learned that if you do this, it helps. Okay, Y plus cell size. So that's just below the head. Then we're going to make a function that will turn out to be very useful, not only here, but another place. We're going to call this function add new body sprite to end. And I could say end of snake, but You know that. And we're going to have a couple of parameters, and they are going to be, one is, guess what, X, and the other is Y. Now, we could call these, okay, so I might change those in a minute. Okay, anyway, there it is. This is, okay. We're going to add, so in this function, we're going to create a sprite and add it to the end, or to the head, behind the head of the snake. So all we have to do now is call that function right there. Then we're going to have another loop that's also a repeat loop. So I'm just going to copy this one because it's very similar. And it's going to change X. So this is going to be horizontal body. So first we built the snake under the head going down, and then we're going to build to the left, or was it right? Oh, I'll think about it later. X and cell size, and then so now these parameters are, you know what they are. They are X and Y. There. And that is all there is to it, except that now we need to actually do this. Oops, and I forgot to put Y in. Okay. So I'm going to rename these X and Y to XP so that you know they're not global variables. I like to just keep sometimes I keep my parameter names different from the other names I'm using in the other part of the program, but it absolutely makes no difference. It works either way. Sometimes if I have been away from the code for a while, it's hard to remember what I meant to do there, so one needs a little help every now and then, particularly if you're a 77-year-old grandma. Okay, now we're going to set the last, we need to know where the last body sprite, we're going to create something we call the last body sprite. So it is actually going to be a new sprite. And this sprite is going to be called last body sprite. And it's going to be a sprite with a snake body image. And it's going to be of kind snake body sprite. And this we're going to set its position. So go up to sprites. Snake body sprite last. Okay, I want to rename this for some reason. To last snake sprite. That's the sprite on it. That's its very last cell of its tail. And we're going to set it to position, guess what? XP and YP. Now, here comes the magic. We are going to do some array stuff. So now we're going to add the value of snake to our snake list. And we're going to add the last body sprite to the very end. There. And that's all you have to do to put a new sprite on the end of the snake. So now this probably will do something if we try to run it. Won't that be cool? So let's just see if we built a snake. Oh, look at that. It wasn't quite the snake I wanted. Okay, something is crashing it. So it's 1 over too far in the X direction. So let's see if we can fix that. That mistake would probably be here. Ah, there it is. See, this is where we're building the part of the tail that goes to the left, and this should be a minus. Now, let's hope for the best. Okay, that didn't fix that part. Maybe the problem is the snake head, but I don't think so. Let's go back and look at the snake head. No, nope, I don't see a problem there. You probably know by now I'm cheating. I have a copy of the code over here that I'm looking at. So snake list to empty. Okay, that's all work. Y, X, snake body head, snake head, X. There it is right there. See there? That should be X. Cool. Don't know why we're having this problem. Okay, doesn't seem like it wants to run for us, so I have, oh, I did these backwards. You knew that! Why didn't you tell me? There, yay! We have a snake, yippee! Okay, we have now 20 minutes left to go, and we have quite a few things to do. And I'm going to pick some to do that are particularly interesting, and then I will look at the finished code in order to do the rest. So the most interesting thing is how you make the snake move. So you do it with this on-game update every 50 minutes. And I like to use a variable there so I can change it easily. So I use move rate. And we're going to set move rate over here. I'm going to set it to 500, which is the grandma rate. So that means it moves very, very slowly every half a second. And then if you set it to 100, you have a snake that goes so fast you can hardly see it move. And then over here, we're going to use move rate as a parameter. Okay, and then we're going to do something else very interesting here. We're going to call move snake, so we need to make it. So that's how we move the snake. But let's just think about this a minute. If we move the snake every so often, and this could be very fast. So what if we're building the snake when this thing says to move it? That would definitely mess things up. So I don't like to take chances. So I create a thing called bgo. I like to put b in front of my Boolean variables. And I'm going to set bgo right up here to false. And that way, while it's working on building the snake, that this update will not run if I put an if statement around it. With the variable bgo. Cool. So now this will only start moving the snake if the snake is already built. And there's one more place. Moving the snake is kind of interesting, but we're going to not have time for that. So the next kind of interesting thing is, let's go over to the B button. I'm going to close all these. We don't need this. This B button is going to start and stop the snake. So to do that, all we need to do, so when the game starts, you need to press the B button for it to actually run. So we're going to set bgo to not bgo. So that means, okay, here we go again. Okay, so I'm going to take this out of here. Then I'm going to put this in there, and then I'm going to put this here. So this means if bgo is true, that it's running, and if you press B, it turns it to false, so therefore it will stop running because it will stop updating. And vice versa. If bgo is false, and you hit this, it will make this true, and the snake will start moving at that point. Now, these 4 buttons, you tell the snake which way to move. And the way we do that is simply create a variable called snake direction. And that variable will have different values. Go up will be 0. Oh, that's not what I want. Bad grandma. Up is 0, right is 1. Down is 2, and left is, you guessed it, 3. Now, in the code where we actually move the snake, we actually have to know which direction the snake is going in order to know where to move its head. Do you move it to the left, to the right, in order to, and to actually move the snake? So that's kind of interesting. And then we'll do these last ones because they're essential. So when the snake head intersects food, we want to increase the score. So we're going to set bgo to false. And the reason for that is while I am lengthening the snake, which is what will happen in here, I don't really want it to be moving. And then when I finish getting it built, I will set it to true. And so in here, I'm going to change the score by 1. I'm going to play a note I've experimented with different things here, and I'm looking for middle C right there. Play a tone middle C, so you know that he ate a snake. Okay. Then I'm going to change the number of apples by -1. And I'm going to lengthen the snake by 1 sprite. So to do that, I'm going to make myself another function called lengthen the snake by 1 sprite. Well, let's just leave it up there. And then we need to do apples. And we already built that, so we need to increase the number of apples. So we'll do apples, and then we're finished. So that's how you increase the score. Now this one, which is one of the conditions under which the game is over, is just to do a game, and we're going to do game over, and I like something to go on, so we'll just use dissolve, and you lose, not win. So, and that's because, oh, look at when the snake head sprite intersects a snake body sprite, the game is over. Okay, now I want to go over to the finish code, and this is the one the link is for. And we're going to take a quick look at some of the things that we didn't build today. One of them is that one, which is this is to move the snake head. So notice we test which direction the snake is going. In other words, what direction is the snake pointed? And if the direction is up, you put the you move the snake head, to this XY, and if it's right, or if it's moving right, you move it here, and so on. So these X's and Y's that you move the snake head are a little different depending on which direction it was going first. And then this can be tricky right here. Once we have moved the snake head, we then move the last body sprite to where the head was. And that's equivalent to, now think about it, if you move the head 1 cell, which is 8 pixels, then you have an empty space. Now, the very tail end of the snake, you need that sprite to move up so that there's nothing there. And you would have to create a new sprite to put between the head and the first body sprite. Well, instead of doing that, killing a sprite, making a new one, I just take the last body sprite and put it right after the head. So that's what this does. It says, this is the snake list. So it gets and removes the last value from snake list. So that's the last body sprite. And it puts it right at the head. And then this actually makes the position correct. So, and this head X prior and head Y prior, this is where the snake head was, this X and Y. And we save that somewhere. Where did we save that? Move the head. I don't remember where we saved it. Somewhere, oh, here it is. And move the snake. The first thing we did was remember where the snake head was. So snake X prior and Y prior. So that's what makes this work. The other thing that's a little tricky is when you lengthen the snake by one sprite, you actually have to you have to know which the relationship between the last two sprites. And I'm gonna so I'm gonna show you this right here. Now think about it. In this image, the next body sprite would go right there. Okay, let's try the next one. But in this image, it would go here, which is okay. Both of those were the same situation where these last two were pointing. They were vertical. Let's see. Now this one, you wouldn't put it here, which is what the code would do if you put it below the last body sprite. You have to put it here. So this is a little bit tricky, and this is the same situation. You wouldn't put it here, which you would do if the snake were pointing upward, but if the last two sprites were pointing upward, were in vertical alignment, you would have to put it here because they're in horizontal alignment. So that is what this code does. It gets the last two sprites, so it gets them out of the array, and it uses the relationship of those two sprites to know where to put the next body sprite. Now, in another version of this program, which is described on my website, I think it's the Elvis the Snake one, I actually did some fancy mathematics to calculate this, and it's pretty cool because you can do this like in 2 lines of code, but it's not clear. It's very obtuse. So I decided that for the purposes of this more tutorial snake, I would spell it out so you can get yourself a drawing and figure out what it's supposed to be. Well, let's see. I think I have pretty much built the snake. I'm looking at it to see if there's something important that I missed. Well, we didn't look at in apples, so let's just look at that quickly. Do apples. Nothing fancy about it. It just tosses some apples on the screen in random position. So I have a little algorithm here says that if the number of snakes is less than 4, then I'm going to put 1 to 3 apples on the screen. And that's just to make it interesting. I don't always put 2 apples. I don't always put 3. So this limits the number of apples that will get on the screen, because if it's 4 or more apples, it'll come out of here and there will be no apples added. And then to do this, we make ourselves an apple sprite, and we set its X and Y at a random position on the screen. I try to not put it right at the borders because there's too much possibility of the snake running into the edge and into the game. And then I just change the number of apples by 1. So that is apples. Okay, I think that we have done a pretty good job of covering snake, and I hope you build many happy snakes in your life. And there's very few more fun snake things to build than a snake, because it's so dynamic and it moves and it's pretty and it works on your phone, and like, what more could you want? Okay, Grandma out. Bye.